out those projects that we want to use bright, vibrant colors with that are reflective of the weather and the flowers and all the things that show up in spring. And so I thought today I would share kind of the process of working with those bright colors that I did when I worked on this card over here on the right. There are two things when we're working with bright colors that are a little bit of a challenge. And that is we want to make sure we're matching our colors and that we're blending and mixing those brights together really well. And it takes a little bit of knowledge or a little bit of thinking about it to make that really work well. So I'm going to use this fun lady. She is a penny black stamp and never stop dancing, and I love her, and I've got a story for you here at the end. She speaks to me on so many levels. But I'm going to start by stamping her with some Memento Tuxedo Black, and I'm not going to be coloring this in from start to finish for you. I'm going to jump to some parts that will help illustrate this process. So I have picked these four colors: Raspberry Fizz, Orange Zest, Hibiscus Burst, and Limeade Ice. These are all paper tray ink cardstock colors, but they're very on trend for right now. We're seeing a lot of pinks and oranges mixed together with just a little splash of lime for contrast. And when we're working with bright colors like this, it's good to keep in mind the hue, which is the actual color, saturation, which is the intensity of color, and third, the brightness, which is the amount of black or white in it. And what you want is to pick colors that have each of those in the same amount. Okay, so I know that was kind of crazy confusing. Let's see if we can make it a little easier. In your photo editing software, you've probably seen an adjustment option like this. And it basically is saying you can change the hue, the saturation, the lightness, the three characteristics of color. The color, intensity, brightness. They call it lightness. If we pick colors, whatever the color is, and we make the other two elements match, if we pick a pink, but the saturation and the lightness match those that we have selected for the orange, those colors are going to work well together because one isn't more powerful in the darkness or lightness or in the intensity of color. Does that make a little bit more sense? If you pick colors that their other two sliders are in the same place, they're going to work better together. So with these four that I have selected, the next thing, I know that they're going to work together because of their hue, saturation, and brightness, but the next thing is actually matching colors, regardless of what medium you're going to use. If you're going to use, I'm using Copics, and I'm putting the colors I chose up on the screen here for you, but really the principle behind it is whatever color medium you're going to use, I suggest that you have a color chart, because the color chart is the best way, in my mind. I don't have great eyes to just kind of gauge it. I want to actually lay the paper up next to it, and I want to find a range of colors, some lights, some mediums, some darks. And even if I don't have something that totally matches, I can get in that same family. So here is where my normal coloring methodology actually kind of changes when I'm working with trying to mix these bright colors together. I normally start with my darks, but I'm actually going to go in with my very lightest shade out of all three of those color families and lay in where the highlights are, because it's really important for me to visually begin to realize where I want my lights and where I want my darks. And you're seeing here, I'm actually going in with my dark now. And it's going to look like I'm being a little blotchy in my coloring because it is so different. I'm not trying to overly blend these. I want the viewer's eye to actually see kind of a distinction of those light pink, dark pink, and orange. But I want it all in this skirt. This lady is the epitome of what I want to be when I'm her age. She's wearing her bright colors. She's dancing in her Birkenstocks. So I don't want to overly blend this and lose that color family that we have there. I want the eye to be able to see it. But the way to make that happen is to use little brush strokes and to just keep working back and forth between the three colors. I'm not going to do everything with the dark pinks. I'm not going to do everything with the orange or everything with the lights. If I am working in an area, I'm going to pick up the dark of each of those three and do a little coloring. Then I'm going to pick up the mediums of each of those three, and I'm not blending. You can see I'm using these brush strokes. Right now it looks super blotchy, but as we make our way from the outside into where those lights are, you really will, the eye, it begins to get it. It begins to see the folds of the dress. It begins to see that she is wearing this just wildly outrageous outfit, and she's swishing her skirt, and you can see even the brush strokes kind of add to the motion of that skirt. So actually for something like this, blending these colors together works, because even keeping them kind of distinct as I am doing here, working towards that center, and as I get closer and closer to the center, you'll see that I leave very visible those brush strokes, because it gives the eye somewhere to go. Oh, I see it as the whole, but I realize that all of those are in there together. Now, one of the things that I do when I'm doing these bright colors is you really don't have, because they're all the same intensity of brightness, right? So we want to add some dark in there, and I found that using gray is not the best way to do that. So if you'll use a blue violet to add those shades in, you'll actually get much more realistic shading, because most shadows have a bit of a cool feel to them. So adding that blue violet in there will give you that shadow. Definitely go back over it once you've laid that in. It looks a little dark and stark there, but if you pick up after you've done that, you'll see I'm coming back in with the pinks, the oranges, and those various colors, and I'm coloring over the shadow that I put in there, and that again changes the color that is most visible. It has some dark in it, and now we've added black or less, made it a little less bright, but we've kept the intensity by coloring over it with those additional colors. And I think you just kind of end up with a very fun look here. I like that you can see all of those three shades in her skirt, and then her little sweater, which apparently whenever I color this lady, apparently she only has a lime green sweater to go with all of her different skirts that she may wear. So I know I said I wasn't going to do a full step-by-step, but I thought I'd share a couple of other details of how I put the rest of this card together while I tell you this funny story on myself. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw this picture that I posted a few days ago. I'm participating in a photo prompt called My Feet Tell a Story, and on this particular day, I took a picture of my feet in my dancing shoes. Yes, I am taking ballroom dancing lessons, and I love dancing. I've loved dancing since I was a kid. I took lessons, and to this day, you put music on, I want to get up and dance to it. And my girlfriends know that I joke often about the fact that I try to stay ready, because Dancing with the Stars is going to call me one of these days, because they're going to have somebody that can't fulfill their dancing responsibilities, and they're going to call me. And as I, was kind of thinking about that, I thought I probably ought to kind of brush off my dancing skills if I'm going to be ready for that moment. So when this new ballroom dance studio opened up, I decided I'd go take a couple lessons, and I went and signed up. And the very first night I was there, they're working on assigning an instructor for me, and I'm working with a couple of the different instructors, just doing a few just basic moves, and I'm having fun, and I'm thinking I'm doing great, and in my head I'm dancing like Baby. in Dirty Dancing, because you know she had the moves and she was working with this great instructor, and I kind of caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, because as you know, in a dance studio mirrors are everywhere, and I realized that with this really young and very great instructor that I'm working with, the picture really was not so much baby as it was Vivian Pressman from the movie Dirty Dancing. But in my head, I will always be baby when I dance, and that's what I loved about this particular image and why she just speaks to me, because I think in her head she thinks she's baby too, and she may be dancing in her Birkenstocks and her wild colored outfits, but she is out there doing it with abandon. And that's what I want to do no matter what it is. I want to approach life and the experiences of it with abandon, and I want to approach art with abandon too. And I think sometimes we don't do some of those things we want to do, like work with really bright colors, because we're just a little nervous about, you know, well, is it gonna work? Is it gonna, you know what? Let's throw caution to the wind and let's just apply a few little things that'll help us make that abandon work for us. And I hope that's what this video has done for you, this tutorial. I hope that it's given you just a few little tips and tricks that will help you work with those bright colors with the abandon that our fun lady is willing to dance. I appreciate you coming and hanging out with me. If you are not a subscriber, please subscribe. And that's the best way for you to find out what when I have a new video up. And please follow me on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, because that's where I tell most of these kind of funny stories on myself. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me today. I will be back with another video soon, and in the meantime, be sure and save some time for creative play.